Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name is Mike Anastasia. With me today we got Brandon.
Hello,
We're here to talk about games and things.
games and things.
I don't even know what's on the agenda today. Games. Probably things too. I don't even know. I don't even know any of the words you wrote down. They don't make any sense to me. So
The?
oh,
You
I
don't know
know
the
that
word
one.
the?
Yeah, I know that one. That's the only one.
Hmm.
Not a single other one. Yeah, then I played more Pokemon. That's it.
Yay.
Yay!
You sure do seem like you want to play games.
I know. I go through phases like this every once in a while where I'm just not playing much and just don't feel like I'm drawn to much. Yeah, but I went all in on. Actually, I did play a couple things, I guess, this week. They had another Tetris 99 this week. Forgot
Oh,
about that.
all right.
Because as far as I saw, they didn't even like announce it. I was just kind of checking something else out, and they're like, "Oh, Tetris 99," and I was like, "Oh, that's like today's the last day to do it." I'm like, "Oh, I guess I better. I've missed one of these things yet, so I might as well get this stupid Princess Peach skin." So I did that. Wasn't even very exciting. I couldn't even tell you what the music was, and I feel like that's the biggest feature of the Tetris 99 like themes that they do. But yeah, that was that. I've been playing more Pokemon
Yep.
as well, and so I've been. What did I do this last week? I played a bit more of the DLC from like that second DLC from Pokemon Violet and Scarlet. I was actually now I've got a little more time in it. Seems like there's a bit more going on there. Like they got these little like quests for you to do while you're kind of going around the terrarium. And interestingly, they had a challenge. So like you go in there and they're like, "Hey, here's your." They actually have kind of like trainers, like gym leader kind of things, almost like what you would have in like the main game.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, but then when you go in, they have like your gym challenge, and this one actually I thought was really cool. The one that I had done, where they're like, "Hey, you got to fight 4 people, or however many people. I don't know. You got to fight some challengers, but the catch is you can only use Pokemon that you catch in this terrarium, like nowhere else." And I was
Okay.
like, "Oh, that's actually kind of cool because the stuff that you've been dragging around for the last 100 hours, you can't use." Stuff from the last DLC pack you can't use. You're restricted to only what you caught and had there. So I actually had to go out and like catch like a totally new random team just with like Pokemon that were just on this terrarium. That was kind of neat, actually, because you really don't know what you're building for, and you don't know what you're playing against, and it was just kind of a nice surprise. I was like, this is actually
Okay.
kind of a creative challenge. Um, so they had that, and then what else did I do? I did more Pokemon Go. I've been like crazy Pokemon Go the last week. I don't know why. I mean, I kind of do because I wanted that one Pokemon, and I've been really struggle busting to get that missions completed so I can actually do it.
Okay.
Which has actually just tied me into playing a lot more Pokemon Go all of a sudden.
Hmm.
So I've just been going along doing missions with that, like cleaning up like all these things. I went on Reddit. I made more Pokemon Go friends. I needed more like gifts because you can get gifts. And I was catching up on features that I didn't even realize that they had in Pokemon Go.
Hmm.
I guess they had because they've been adding things pretty regularly to it, but they added
Okay.
this feature to the postcards where you can collect. What's the Pokemon? I can't even think of what it's called now. Vivillon, the one that had remember like all those different designs and stuff.
Hmm.
So the way that they did it in this one is they tied it to postcards in the game. Like when you send gifts to other people, they are tagged with kind of which a Pokestop you got them from. So it's got like a picture of the place, and then so when you send it, it sends out basically a gift from there. Be like I don't know. Example would be like gift from the Eiffel Tower, and it sends a picture of the Eiffel Tower because that's where you were at the Pokestop, and then it gives you all the items. So you get all that. But depending on the locations that those postcards come from, if you save them, you
Mm-hmm.
can eventually get a one of those, basically the Vivillon, like the Scatterbug, I think is what the first form is called, from
Okay.
that region, and then you can evolve that into whichever Vivillon it's supposed to be. So, and each region like has their own one. So if you get postcards from like Germany, it's one region, or you get postcards from like the United States, another like that's the polar region or whatever. you remember how it kind of worked with the one previously, where because it was that was Sun and Moon, I think is where that Pokemon was,
I think so.
or the one before. I can't remember. X and Y. But I remember if in that one it was set to your region in your 3DS, depending on which region in the 3DS you said you were from, determined which type of Vivillon you got. So you had to trade to get all the different seasons.
I think that was X and Y.
Yeah, as I was talking through it, I was like, it seems like it was earlier than Sun and Moon. That's what I meant to say. So, I don't know. So there's that. There's all the Pokemon stuff. Yeah, so I've just been going through and trying to catch up on Pokemon Go because I just had, I don't know, because a lot of times I'll play Go just like casually, and I'll just go around and, if I'm out and about or traveling or just kind of out relaxing, like around town or whatever, like I'll pull it out and see if there's anything nearby. But a lot of times I just won't have the time to do things at that time, or just won't care enough to look and see, like, oh, did I complete all these missions? What am I missing? To complete these different side quests. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of days, just really cleaning up a lot of stuff that I had on there. And I was like, oh, I actually had a lot more I could do here than I had thought I could. So,
okay.
Yeah. So there's that. And that was part of the excitement. And then, like I said last week, this week was the eclipse. So
yeah.
that was exciting. It was a lot more exciting than I expected it to be, honestly. So it was.
I was out during it. It was literally boring. There was like not much to happen here at all.
Yeah. So on ours, I was reading online before, and they're like, if you are like, the difference between being in the totality and not is like immense. And so as for my experience yesterday, I would agree, because I remember that I had like it was an annular total eclipse when I was in like elementary school. I remember it getting kind of like dusky, like darker than, maybe like slightly darker than usual, but nothing like too crazy. This was like full on darkness for a few minutes, and that was kind of cool. It was unfortunate though, because it was so overcast here yesterday, you couldn't even tell where the sun was. But it just suddenly very rapidly got dark, like all the street lights turned on. That's kind of cool. I was surprised it got cooler, like instantly, kind of like a rush of wind. I don't know. It was neat. Was that much cooler than what I had expected it to be. And what I was reading too is like, if you are like, I think they said something, it has to be like 95% totality for it to even really be like noticeable. So if you're on like 90%, like there's still just so much sun that kind of comes through. Like you could use the glasses and watch it, but you're gonna be like, oh, that's not terribly, like it doesn't have that darkness effect like it.
We were at 86, so it was nothing.
Yeah, I think that's how it was last time, like the one in 2017 when that one was here, because I don't remember it either. I totally forgot. The only reason I have any recollection of that eclipse is because I remember the meme of like Trump looking at the sun. That just still kind of like goes around. It's the only reason I remember that one exists. Because it was partial here, so it just didn't do anything. Like nobody really seemed to care. Like nothing. I don't even think I tried to look at the sun. Yeah. So I don't know. But DJ really wants to go because we were overcast yesterday, so we did kind of miss that excitement. So he's like, we should go take a trip and go maybe see one of the other ones, because they occur like somewhat regularly around the world. It's just you have to, if you're like not gonna go travel for one, they're pretty infrequent. So
okay,
yeah. I don't know. That's all my eclipse.
Okay,
jargle, I guess. That's all I got overall. No, just
okay, well then I can go ahead and talk about mine.
Yeah.
So I wrote here, and this is probably one of the ones where you're like, what the fuck even is this?
Yeah, I don't even know what this is.
ESEA CS2. So I joined a team. Like, the ones that play for money and that sort of thing. And I joined one of those, and I played recently. It's our first one, and we were playing against some really high ranked people, like really high ranked, even though we were like brand new team. We did get some rounds, but we did not win our first match. But we have 2 matches every week. One on Monday and one on Wednesday at 8:30, both days. And we got like 7 weeks of matches to see how we do and see if we can get ranked, like in the team standings. If we do, we get to go to the next rank and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it'll be a lot. Once you guys are, more used to playing as a team, I'm sure you guys will do a ton better.
We play as a team every single night. It's just we have to play as a team more seriously, the people I'm playing with. So
instead of just fucking around.
Instead of just shooting the shit, which it's honestly kind of impressive that we got any rounds versus a team that had like literal maxed ranked people that even placed 4th like last year in this season. So the fact that we actually won some rounds against them was kind of impressive. So it's gonna take a while for them to like even out the teams since we're brand new and we have like no rankings or anything. So at least the way it was explained to me was our first like week is going to be just a hodgepodge of they don't know where to put us, and after that they'll put us where we should be accordingly, more or less.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. A lot of times with like those kind of ranking things, they'll just kind of like what they do in games, they'll pitch you up against just random pairings of different rankings so they can kind of guess about where you are ranking wise, and so they can put you against more appropriate people.
Yeah, and I had fun. I had fun playing it. I always liked CS2. I have a shit ton of hours in this game. I played it for a very, very long time. So when I was asked if I wanted to play on a team, I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
But I thought you like hated CS2.
I do hate CS2. They have been doing a lot of things, right? All right, so this kind of eliminates some of the reasons I hate CS2. So the way this works is completely regulated by the tournament rules, not normal Valve shit. You also use tournament servers and the tournament's anti-cheat, which eliminates a lot of the cheating and bullshit that you would normally have to deal with in CS2, which is a very big issue I have. It's the fact that their anti-cheat just doesn't work, and the fact that a lot of stuff just doesn't feel right. But see, these servers are different from the original servers, so they feel slightly less bad. And I could just kind of play the game like I normally used to be able to, more or less. It also gets rid of a lot of the other shit that I just dislike and just kind of breaks it down to its bare bones, and you just go in, you play your games, and you're done. And I'm probably going to be using this service even after the tournaments because it seems like just a better service with better match quality and better games overall. So, yeah, I do like it.
Okay, that makes sense.
I would like to also talk about another game. This one, I do feel like, how last generation with the PS4, Days Gone came out and no one paid it any attention whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like at all. And then everyone now is like, we want a sequel, it was so good. We don't know why we didn't play it initially, but it was so good when we did finally play it. I found PS5's game that will be that. And it's called Rise of Ronin. This game is actually like incredible. Where do I start? So this is a Souls-like with a lot of the Ubisoft open world formula, but none of the bullshit, if that makes any sense. So like, go to bases, take out the bosses of the bases to like capture the base, this, that, and the other. It's got a lot of elements of that. But it is a Souls-like. This is literally a Dark Souls-like game, and it's set with like the Ronins and all this good jazz and in Japanese history, all that good stuff. But like the world is very interesting and very well made. The game has some really neat ideas. Like for instance, when I made my character at the beginning, I had to make a second character also. That was my Blade Twin. And Blade Twins are like this person that you train with and is like your basically ride or die kind of partner when it comes to being a Ronin. And
is it an actual like character?
Yeah, you design the character fully yourself. And they are part of the plot. You can even swap between them. and play as them at any point in time. However, in the first mission, they get murdered.
Oh, okay.
I'll leave it at that. More stuff happens than that, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Do you still play as them as they're dead?
I said I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it alone. And no, that's not what you do. That something else happens. It's very good. But also, the open world aspect. I was talking about capturing these bases, saving people, having like conversations, building bonds with people. The really interesting thing is the people that you build bonds with. You could choose not to build bonds with them. So, like for instance, there was this one. I assaulted this one base, and their leader. More or less was like, hey, if you let me live, I'll help you out. So I let him live, and then he became my second character. So then, like I could swap with my Blade Twin earlier, I could swap with the character that I didn't kill off. And you got to like kind of weigh your, pros and cons of, do I want this person that's potentially going to fuck me over? Or that I don't really care for, or that has already fucked me over for a long period of time to join me because they're kind of powerful, or do I just want to fucking kill them right here and now? And you can like make those decisions. And sometimes when you make the decision to let them leave, they won't join you right away, and you'll have to play more missions against them before they actually join you. And that happened to me with one character I chose. And I really like the idea of forming bonds and then actually having the bond strengthen the gameplay by having the people join you and being able to like swap them in and out and have multiple characters that you can play as at once. I think it's pretty cool. There's gun combat as well, which works pretty well. Have you ever played a game called Tenchu? That was like on PlayStation 1. It was like a stealth ninja like game and everything, but it was very fun. It had a lot of very specific rule sets, and then on top of all of that, it was very jank, but in like the best way possible. So that is what this game reminds me of some, and I quite like it a lot. I do think that this is going to be one of those hidden gems that like 3-4 years from now, people will be like, damn, I wish we had a sequel to Rise of Ronin, because it is that good. I've put a lot of time into this one already, and it's been really enjoyable. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talking pretty positively on it so far.
I think everyone that's actually played it has nothing but good things to say about it. I think anyone that hasn't because it looks ugly, which 100% does. It does not look like a $70 game. And because of its frame rate problems if you play it on the pretty mode. But it's not worth it to play it on the pretty mode because it's a fucking Souls-like. You should play max settings on a Souls-like. That's I mean, not max settings, but max frame rate on a Souls-like. You need those frames more or less.
And that box art honestly looks like something if I ever saw it in the store, I would run. Like I'd be like, oh, that game looks like it's bargain bed.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so I understand. It looks very generic, and I kind of thought it was going to be really generic when I first started playing it, and then I was like, wait, there's like an actual game here. And then I realized the reason why it was reviewing so poorly for a lot of people on was because it's an actual game. It's a Sony first-party game that's an actual game, and that's a big problem for some people. Because they're like, I wanted a movie, or I wanted something really pretty, and it's not really pretty, and it's not handholdy, and it's not this, that, and the other, and I don't like it, and or it's really hard, and it is really hard. This game is like quite hard at times. But yeah, there's a lot of different weapons and gear combinations and different things that I'm still finding at this point, and yeah, it's pretty good. So
I've not seen. I was just trying to pull up the video. I've not seen anything, I don't think, even of it.
You've not seen anything of it? You just seen like the cover?
Yeah, I just was Googling the thing to find a video, and I was like, okay, well there's the cover, and I'm like, oh, is that really the cover? And I'm like, yep, that's really the cover. I was like, okay. But I have not seen any. Like I said, I've seen just kind of generally positive speaking. Oh, it does look jank.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. It's the best kind of jank.
I feel like I just went back at least 2 generations.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It looks like a PlayStation 3 game. I'm not here to defend it. It absolutely does, but it is really fun.
Oh man, that blood is nostalgic.
I got you, bro. I'm sending something to the general chat so you can like kind of look through some of my video. You can go to like 131. It's fun. That's the thing. Like that's the main takeaway I have for this game. It is really fun. It is not a looker, but the gameplay is incredibly enjoyable. All the different stances you can take and how there's different enemies that are weak and strong against different things, and all the different guard breaks and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you can build your character makes it like a very good game.
Once I get past all the Zayads.
No, thanks for the money. Didn't mean to do that. My bad. That's supposed to only run when I'm streaming. I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, it is. So.
I hope you appreciate your penny from me watching that fat oil ad.
I'm sorry. So I guess I have a takeaway for that, right? I used to never run ads on my Twitch at all, right?
Yeah.
And then Twitch forced everyone to run ads. So then I was like, well, fuck you. Then I'm going to take the money from you, Twitch. I'm going to run the ads and take the money. So then I just leaned into it. I was like, well, if you're going to make me run ads anyway, then I'm going to run enough so that I get the money instead of it all going to you and me getting jack shit for it.
Yeah, why not? Wow.
So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to earn a different type of money in this. So there's like silver bars or silver coins that you get, and you get that for capturing cats and for doing different bond missions and for doing like main story quest, as well as like clearing out different main island areas such as like bases and whatnot. And that stuff you can then spend at like black market salesmen's. And those people have like the gear that's actually like gear sets where you can like craft yourself as like a certain like class, more or less. And the way the classes work in this game is essentially you're able to build your character around different kinds of play styles. So like for instance, you use like a revolver, and there's like a class that's called like handgun specialist, and you look for gear sets that have handgun specialist on it. And then as you get more pieces of that gear, it allows you to like spec into like that kind of class essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it though. I think this is a really enjoyable game. Very difficult. It's really easy to get like overrun and instantly killed by a trash mob for like because you just weren't expecting it. But I quite enjoy this game. So yeah, I played that, and we're gonna move on from that. So there's that. I played Buckshot Roulette as well.
I was trying to figure out if that was. Oh, you fixed it because there was a 5 in there earlier, and I was like, is it the 5th one?
No, I accidentally hit it when I was because I wrote roulettes originally.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what the fuck? I didn't mean to do that. And then I hit backspace. And then I guess when I went to go like press something else, like another combination of something, I pressed the 5 on this page instead of the other page. So
no, I know what really happened. You were like, is it roulettes like an S, or is it roulette spelled like video games with a?
Yeah, but there's no S. Period.
Well,
but anyway,
no,
it doesn't matter. Yeah. Buckshot Roulette is a new roguelike adventure game where it's like $250, $269, somewhere in there, $299, not on sale. And the way it works is you like start the game out and you're in like this dingy like club bathroom. And then you could like click on the door and you go out of it. You go out to like this little foyer where there's some people out there smoking a cigarette and you hear all the music bumping. But then there's another door in the back. And if you go into that door, you come to a table. And on that table sits a shotgun. And right across from you is this scary, creepy face guy. And this scary, creepy face guy, it's easier for me to show you. So again, I'm going to put this in the general.
Okay.
The scary, creepy face guy, right? He essentially gives you a contract, and the contract is for money, and you're playing Russian roulette but with a buckshot shotgun. He loads enough shells into the shotgun, but some of them are blank, and each round you have to choose to shoot him or yourself. He is some kind of eldritch being, so you shoot him and he doesn't die, But also, if you get shot, you don't die either because he's constantly keeping you alive on life support and with blood transfusions, so that you won't die. So you have to play his like Saw-like game essentially, and it's super interesting and really weird. I don't know what the whole lore of this is basically, but you start with 2 health each, and the shotgun's put in the middle. 1 shot from it, obviously, you lose 1 health. And 2 shots, you lose 2, and you have to start all the way over. But there's ways you can change this. So each round, you're allowed to pull 4 items from a lockbox, and so is he. And the 4 items consist of partially expired medication, a saw, a polarity device of some type, beer, cigarettes, a magnifying glass, handcuffs, and this adrenaline shot. I think that's all of them. I'm trying to remember if there's any more I missed. Each one changes the game out. So if you use your magnifying glass, right, you're able to look down the the side of the shotgun and see what shell is inside of it. So then you can make your decision that way. So you can use a magnifying glass, see that the shell that is inside the shotgun is a live shell, and then fire it instantly at him. I forgot about the cell phone. There's a cell phone. You call this weird guy, and he tells you how many shells away from a live or a fake round you are. And the way this essentially works is there are 3 rounds, and when you get to the 3rd round, then you have a boss round, basically, where everything is done in different ways. Everything's done way faster. It's the end. If you die, you have to start all the way over. If you don't, well, then you win, essentially. It's a very short and very weird game, but to give you a few examples of what you can do, you could handcuff the guy you're against. He's now handcuffed, so you get 2 turns. You could then use a saw to saw off the barrel of the shotgun. So now you have a sawed-off shotgun, which does 2 damage instead of 1. If you had a magnifying glass, you could take the magnifying glass and see if it's a live round in the gun, or you can guess. And then if it is a live round and you fire it, he takes 2 damage, but you've still got 1 more go. So you could then be like, okay, what's the probability? There's 8 shells in here. I saw that 3 of them were live rounds. I've just used 1 of them, so that means I've got this much left. So what's the probability of if I fire the shotgun at myself, I will die? And then you make that decision. And if you fire a shotgun at yourself and you don't get shot, you get another turn. And that's essentially the way it works. The risk gives you a reward, and the reward is being able to continue to fight without having to give up your turn to the enemy that you're fighting up against. It sounds very confusing, but it's very easy to get the hang of within 1 round and understand everything that the game wants you to do. And then as the game's getting faster and faster and you're learning more about it as you go along, it gets quite complicated, and you start doing mental math in your head, okay, wait, hold on, now let me think about this. If I play this and this is going to happen and I do this, or here's the probability of this many shells being left behind, and I don't really know, but here we go. And then you can make that guess and see if you take a bullet or not. And I think it's a really weird and really interesting game. It reminds me a lot of something like the card game that I recommended.
Inscription?
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Inscription.
That's what I was going to say.
The creepy dude across from you is a lot like the original guy from Inscription that you fight against. And I do think this game is very interesting and a lot of fun to play. You can get lots of time out of this game, and for $3, I think I've spent maybe 2 or 3 hours in it already, and for $3, that's a no-brainer. It's really fun. It's really enjoyable, and there's high scores and leaderboards and whatnot that you can go for, and I like it. I think it's very good for the price. I think it knows what it is, and because of that, it's a nice little just a little small game to play. Also, they're adding multiplayer in the future, so I think it'll be really fun when you can play this game against a real person instead of just the AI. And I think that's going to make it a much more played game. I think this game will definitely show up a lot in the future once multiplayer is added to it, and I do think this will be like one of those hit games that ends up having something else branch off from it, or like other copycats come out. So, yep, good game. Be on the lookout for it if it ever does come to consoles. Definitely worth checking out.
Looks very interesting.
And I don't think I have anything else really.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
Yeah. I didn't see any news today.
I haven't even checked.
At least nothing terribly exciting, if there was. What?
No, I said like at the fact that there's nothing exciting, that sort of thing.
You know what? I didn't check though. I didn't check to see if there's any good rumors. I forgot about the Sands of Time remake.
Oh yeah, that's right. They completely redid it and that sort of thing. There's The Crew, which is being taken offline permanently. So now people are like, "This is bullshit," because there's no like single player aspect to that game. So you literally can't play the game anymore. It'll just no longer boot ever again.
There was actually
taken off long last week, I believe.
I did see someone was. I don't know if they were suing or what, but somewhat it seemed like forming some sort of a formal complaint about video games, like specifically ones with online services.
Yeah, just dying, and then you lost everything you paid for initially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I could see. Honestly, I feel like that. Not that I expect, companies to let their games play into perpetuity, like to pay for servers and stuff, but at least make it so that people can, like either make it so they can set up their own servers or whatever. Because there's a community that wants to support the game, like let them. New God of War, probably not exciting. People keep on saying the new Gears of War is amazing. I don't know if you've seen all this stuff.
Yeah, but there's nothing to show for it yet. It hasn't even been announced yet.
No, I know. But knowing Microsoft, it would probably be in 2 months. They usually always do a thing around E3 time. RIP E3.
Yeah. I mean, we'll probably see something during like State of Play or whatever.
Yeah. But they said, what did they say? Basically that it was like the most next, or, the game that actually shows off like current gen stuff. Let's see if I can find the actual quote because I'm already butchering it. Yeah. Actually, State of Decay 3 should be maybe in the June Xbox showcase as well.
Yeah,
there it is.
Decay 3.
The quote is that the game will be that this is what next gen is about moment games.
Okay.
So basically, and they went on to say very few games have delivered that next gen moment this generation. So, which is true. We talk about that quite often.
I think like there's only a handful that I really could point to, and yeah, you know what? That just gave me an idea. I want to talk about something actually.
Yeah.
I think that there have been like very few games this generation that were worth their $70 price tag, like period. Because we went over to $70 and now people are like, we're going to be going to 80 or 100, and I'm like, bro, shut the fuck up. Like quite literally, you have like no games that are worth the $70 price tag right now, and the ones that are like very few and far between essentially. And I would say like they have to have more added to them to be worth the $70 price tag, or at least they have to have a good quality about them. Like here's an example I'm going to give first and foremost. So I talked about Rise of Ronin and I gave it like glowing reviews essentially. It's not worth $70 because it doesn't have the quality standards of a $70 title.
They charge $70 for it? Yeah,
it's a $70 game.
Yeah.
That's the running theme with a lot of PlayStation 5 titles. $70, $70, $70, $70. I mean, for fuck's sake, the new Saints Row game was $70, and that shit ain't nowhere worth $70. And then it got given away for free like a year later. So it's like shit gets devalued so fast and it gets valued at a much higher value than it is. Like, I was just giving you an example. Like, we have a game that I was able to finish my first run in less than an hour. I paid $3 for it, and I had 3 hours worth of fun out of it. I still got more coming in the future through the multiplayer update, but that was $3, and that gave me a lot of fun for $3. And then you look at these $70 games, and a lot of them are made just padded out, massively padded out, or they're remakes that aren't even actually remakes. They're just remasters. There's been 3 games this generation that I could point to and be like, yep, that's a $70 game. And it's not just because of the original state it launched in. So, for instance, Returnal, they added multiplayer mode to it, and they added an entire extra campaign on top of that multiplayer mode for free to an already $70 costing game. I think the graphics are there. I think the gameplay loop is there because you can continuously play that game. And also it's designed in a way where it's supposed to be, it randomly generated, that sort of deal and whatnot. And I did think that game had enough content to warrant its $70 price tag, because it also had the performance as well there. And it had so many different things that you could do. And I think that earned its $70 price tag when they added the free multiplayer update and all that other stuff. So that one, good. 2 other games that I think are okay, yes, I could see this being $70. Are, and this is a remake, so I'm gonna go ahead and literally break the no, remakes can't be $70 rules. This game was rebuilt from the ground up though as a remake, and it had enough added and enough done to it, as well as having a locked 60 FPS mode that looked incredible in motion and worked without drops. It just works, quite literally. And that is the first launch title for the PlayStation 5, that being the Demon Souls remake by Blue Point Games. I think it's Blue Point, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think that's who did it. I thought.
Yeah, Blue Point Games Demon Souls remake that launched with the PlayStation 5. That game is fucking incredible. It runs perfectly. It looks awesome. It has ray tracing on top of everything, and it's a remade from the ground up game from a PlayStation 3 title. And it doesn't look like a PlayStation 3 title when you play the remake that they made. That game earns its price tag. And then there's maybe 1 or 2 more, but it's nothing really, I think, personally earns that. The other one that I would probably give it to is Ratchet and Clank, because of the amount of options, the length. It's not padded out in a garbage way like Ubisoft $70 titles are, and all that sort of shit, but it's also not very short, and it also is something that you could just go back and play again and again and again, essentially. And it also looks incredible. But nothing else that is launched at $70 has been worth $70, in my opinion, that has released on PlayStation 5 or Series X. If you notice, I named 0 Series X games because I don't think Xbox has a game that is worth $70 at all, or that I even paid $70 for. So I don't really care so much there. One game that I would have said was worth the $70 price point, but I'm not going to, because of the fact that it's on multiple different consoles and not just on PS5 or Xbox, is the new Yakuza game that I told you about, Infinite Wealth. So that being cross-gen, which I believe is what it is. I believe it's also on PS4, if I'm not mistaken. I might actually be mistaken, but I thought it was on PS4. Yeah, it's on Xbox One and PS4 as well. That being cross-gen, you don't have to pay $70 for that, so, fuck it. But yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing. You look at all these big titles, you look at Spider-Man 2, and it's okay, well, I get more enjoyment out of something like Ratchet and Clank, and it's a better experience with less issues. I don't think Spider-Man 2 is worth $70. I don't think God of War Ragnarok is worth $70 because the original God of War 2016 is just a better game. And it was $60. Nothing that's releasing now at its $70 price point, aside from very, very few titles, has earned its $70 price point, and they already want to raise the price again. And if you just look at the shit that's being pushed out now, it's like, what the fuck are you going on about? No, stop it. You honestly look greedy at this point. Take some of the money that you're putting into advertising and just chuck that out the fucking window. Show it like through maybe some YouTube ads, whatever, and you will make just as much sales, and you could drop it by $10, and you will make even more sales than you would have before. Like, just fucking do that. You're stupid if you don't. I mean, we had, for instance, Baldur's Gate running with a $50 and $60 price point for like 2 years before it got its $70 price point. And there's so much content there, and it's worth the $70, but you didn't have to pay for it if you got in early. So it's like, you didn't have to pay the $70 if you got in early. You didn't have to pay the $70 if you didn't buy it on console. So it's like, some people even know that it's like not worth launching their game at $70, and those games tend to do the best. And then you look at something like, and I'm going to point to this one, I don't think Tears of the Kingdom is worth $70. Do you?
We talked about this before.
I know, but I'm coming back to it. Now that you've had time to stew on it, do you think Tears of the Kingdom is worth $70?
I mean, do I think that in terms of the production values that they put into it is worth 70? Probably.
I would say, taking into account everything that I just talked about, like gameplay length not being padded out, replayability, performance, all of that sort of stuff all together would be what I would put into like the value of a game. And when I think of that, I don't think of Tears of the Kingdom, because Tears of the Kingdom runs worse than Breath of the Wild did. And that's impressive, because Breath of the Wild already ran quite poorly at launch. It got better, but Tears of the Kingdom runs worse than Breath of the Wild. I don't think shit like that's acceptable. And I know it's the hardware of the Switch, but if your hardware is that underpowered and you're gonna keep having issues like that, you don't start pricing your games at $70. And if you look at the other games, there hasn't been a single Switch game priced at 70 since Tears of the Kingdom. So why was it only Tears of the Kingdom that got priced at 70?
If I was going to guess, it's probably because of the presumably very large team that they had for it. And then, I mean, you got to think about, though, the fact that they polished the shit out of the game with what they could. As you're right. Like, the system can only do so much.
Yeah.
But really, considering the systems that they had in play there, and the fact that they ran nearly flawlessly on that system and everything else.
Yeah.
And it was not a Bethesda mess on launch, not even remotely close. It's impressive. I think, at least for me, like, this is my thing with Tears of the Kingdom, because I know you're looking at it like, and I know depending on the situation, we can easily flip flop. But
I was gonna say, I quite literally believe that Tears of the Kingdom was only $70 because they knew they could get $70 for it, because it is a sequel to one of the most popular games that was on Switch. So my reasoning for Tears of the Kingdom being $70 and being the only game on Switch that's $70 is just purely greed. That is my main thought of it. The entire thing, purely greed. That is the only reason it's $70.
I think it's because they took the time to actually polish as much bugs as they could out of it for launch. Remember, they pushed the game back, like a whole 6 months just for polishing?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you got to figure, that's not a small team size to just have. There's a cost to development. Every month that a game's not out, there is a cost associated with it.
You're correct. But here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
If this was another Nintendo IP, and they pushed it back 6 months, and they had as big of a team, would it have been $70? Because I'm going to say no, because it's happened before with other games, and it didn't go up in $10 in price. I'm going to say the literal only reason is $70 is because it's Legend of Zelda, and they knew they could get the money out of people.
But the other thing is, though, they've definitely pushed games back 6 months before, but not with teams this size. This was their largest team they've ever had, right?
I don't know.
And even with Nintendo's other IPs, they just don't ever put anything into that scale. Like it's usually like this and their 3D Marios, if that, get the teams of size. And I don't even think Mario even comes close to it. What?
No, I was looking at how the team for Breath of the Wild.
So I guess my point is with this game, because I don't know, maybe my mind has.
It says they both were 300.
Both what were 300?
Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom had 300 people working on it.
I'm pretty sure Tears of the Kingdom had more.
7 years ago, all 300 Zelda Breath of the Wild development team members spent the entire week, test played the game, see everything is in order. Okay. Tears of the Kingdom. Took 5 years to develop the new game, and the team that eventually swelled to some 300 people as director. I do not know this guy's name. Yeah, it's 300 for both. They had 300 team members for both Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. And Tears of the Kingdom didn't start at 300. It grew to 300, but both of them had eventually 300 team members working on it. So
I wonder if that includes outsourced teams too. I don't know.
I don't know.
But they should be equivalent-ish, I guess, then, at least with that information. But I would still say, though, just for the amount of time and stuff that they put into it, I don't know. Like I said, my mind might be doing mental gymnastics on this one, but
it feels like it is.
It probably is. It feels like it. It probably is. But as I said, in this one I can kind of justify it because
there's only one place that lists that Tears of the Kingdom had more people, and essentially their reason for reporting that it did was one person's Twitter post that's basically "Trust me, bro" as their source.
Oh, wow. What did Trust Me, Bro say?
No. They said 1,148 people were listed in the Breath of the Wild credits. I mean, in the Tears of the Kingdom credits. Breath of the Wild had 914. 800 of them, 70%, never have been credited in a Zelda game before. And this includes QA testing for multiple localization teams. This is just someone that posted this on Twitter. I don't know where they came from or whatever, but they just referenced the credits for both games. And then Games Radar was like, yep, there was 1,148 people that worked on Tears of the Kingdom versus 900 that worked on Breath of the Wild. Everywhere else is like, yeah, they both had 300 people working on the actual game. So, yeah.
So this, I do not know. Let me see where this was. This thing says that it might be what you were looking at.
Is it on Games Radar?
That's what I'm trying to see. Yeah, it looks like it. So it's probably the same article.
Yeah, they literally just quoted someone that cross-referenced the credits of the two games and used that as their reasoning. Like, journalists are going to be journalists and be fucking stupid, but that's even stupid for a journalist. Be like, just one Twitter post said that they combed through everyone in the credits. Bro, you're fucking dumb.
Hey, but I mean, it still shows that it definitely was more than 300 people, though.
Then that would mean there was 900 people that worked on Breath of the Wild if we're going that way. And that means they had 100 extra people, I guess, but they had different localization teams and more localization added to Tears of the Kingdom over the original Breath of the Wild. So that would lower the amount of people that worked on it because it's just another localization team.
Why did they have more localization team? What are you talking about?
So Breath of the Wild, when it was released, didn't have all the localizations that Tears of the Kingdom did when it was released. Meaning there was different languages the game was translated into for Tears of the Kingdom versus Breath of the Wild.
Oh, but this article specifically says that they only had the NOA and NOE localization teams on there.
I saw Korea and all these other things listed as well.
So this specifically says Korea and China are not.
Hold on. Let's see. Are we still in the Games Radar thing?
Yeah, it's literally right in the tweet that they built their story off of.
Oh shit! I can't find the. Let me pull back up that. Hold on. I see. Okay.
But I mean, they're just What was I gonna say? But really, like I said, I'm still just doing mental gymnastics anyways. Like, does this
that's
really
obvious.
justify it? I don't know. But I said that's how my mental gymnastics worked on it. I was like, it's a bigger team, and they worked much harder on this one, so that's why it's more expensive.
I mean, should I point to like Ubisoft's team and then be like, yeah, that makes that definitely the Skull and Bones is definitely worth $70.
Okay, I just told you, Nintendo spent a lot of time polishing their games, Brandon. This is a very polished game. You can't say that about any Ubisoft. I think the worst.
Well, you said, and I quote, the amount of people in their team was your reasoning for why. So I was like, all right, well, let's just point to Ubisoft over here, who has thousands upon thousands of people that work on their games, and they're still dog shit and definitely not worth $70. I'm just doing the same mental gymnastics in a different side of the fucking room.
Yeah, but they're doing quality work. Quality was the difference. And Ubisoft also outsources a lot of their stuff too.
Yeah, to their other team.
Yeah. Well, no, kind of like how Nintendo does the same thing. Like the Retro works on stuff for like Zelda and Mario Kart. Monolith Soft works on stuff for Zelda and Mario Kart. So, it's not unheard of. But I don't know. I guess the question, my big question, after I let this derail into Tears of the Kingdom, but my real question for you is like, if you were to take, let's take, Demon Souls as an example.
Sure. Okay. Like the new one or like the original?
Yeah, the $70 Demon Souls that you're just like, it's excellent $70 game.
Yeah.
What would need for the game to change for you to consider it to be a $60 game?
If it had performance issues, if it just looked like a remaster instead of being rebuilt from the ground up, or if it was not faithfully recreated, like in a way that like actually kept the original vision of the game. Basically, what I'm saying is anything that would make the game be bad would make it be like, or make it so the people didn't put as much work into it as they didn't put their effort in. That would make it be like, that's not worth the $70 price point. Because the length is there, the quality is there, the actual gameplay is there, the improvement is there, the performance is there. Like, everything ticks the box for everything that is important for a game in this day and age, in my modern time, to actually be worth that price point. So from a consumer standpoint. That's what I'm trying to. I'm approaching this purely from a consumer standpoint. I'm not specifically approaching from the way of like, oh, okay, like for instance, I don't even think Bayonetta was worth the fucking price that I paid for it, and it was only a $60 game for Bayonetta 3. I didn't think that was good. It was pretty short. It was very bad performance-wise. The game didn't look good. I think that's also one of my major issues, right? Because, for instance, I have already told you, I really like Rise of the Ronin. I think it's an excellent game. I think it's really fun to play. I don't think it earns its $70 price point. So I have told you all of these things, and then the thing that isn't there is it doesn't stand up quality-wise for like graphical standpoint, for like the way it looks, and it doesn't stand up performance-wise when it comes to like the other options that are in here. And those are two things that are very important, I think, for the value to be there from a consumer standpoint, essentially. If your game doesn't look good, doesn't look like a $70 game, or doesn't have the feeling of something that is charging $70. Because I can look at something like Demon Souls, and then I can look at something like Rise of Ronin, and I'm like, oh yeah, Demon Souls all day, every day is worth it $70. I can look at something like Returnal, and I can look at something like Rise of Ronin, and I'm like, yeah, Rise of Ronin is not worth that $70 price point. But this is. It has the quality, it has the gameplay, it has the length, it has the actual performance, it has this, that, and the other. It has all of those main boxes that I want ticked to make it be valued at that point, at least from a consumer standpoint, on my side of things. So obviously everyone's going to have their own reason for why they think something is valued at what it is. And for you, you've presented your reasoning for why you think that Tears of the Kingdom is valued at $70 and why you think it's worth that price point. And I presented my reasoning for why I think it isn't worth that price point. It's going to be different for each individual person, but I do think there are some things that people can generally agree on. And that's like when you take a game and you pad it out to like hundreds and hundreds of hours and there's nothing to do, it's just all obnoxious Ubisoft stuff, essentially. I think everyone can agree that that game is not worth your $70 price point. I think everyone can agree, essentially.
And it really comes down to, and that was actually something I was thinking in my mind, actually, as you were saying that on a different kind of scale. Because, well, let me see. I kind of had to rewind to explain this a little bit, and I'm going to lose where this is going. I can already tell you.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just saying my reasoning for a game's worth is going to be different from yours.
Yeah.
But I do think there's something that both of us can agree on, and that's that nothing that Ubisoft has put out has been worth $70.
No, definitely not.
But why do we think that, right? We got to take that away, right? Because we have a game that's like a Ubisoft formula in Breath of the Wild, and you say this is worth $70. So what is the difference there between a Ubisoft title that's open world and the open world Zelda title, that sort of thing? So what's the main thing you can take away from those two things, separating the two? And then that would be your reasoning for why that is worth $70, whereas something made by Ubisoft isn't.
It's easy. You actually already said it. It's the padding.
Yeah, the padding's not worth it. And I would also go with probably the quality as well, because you've got a lot more quality gameplay when it comes to something like Tears of the Kingdom. I may not even like Tears of the Kingdom that much, but there is a much more quality title compared to anything that Ubisoft has put out. And I think quality is something that it comes down to, as for most people, for pretty much everyone, the quality of the gameplay that is there is what dictates if it's worth your full price or not. That's what I'm saying. When I say, is it worth $70, right? I'm not saying, should this game have been priced lower specifically. I'm just saying, should the developers have priced this lower? No. I'm asking you, do you think the price that is put to this game right here is a fair price in your eyes specifically for the title? And for you, Tears of the Kingdom meets that threshold, and that's totally fine. It doesn't for me. And for me, the 3 games that I've listed are the only 3 that I can think of that meet that threshold. Because another thing that I would say is, if a title can already be bought from 60 somewhere else, I don't think that makes the upgraded PS5 or Series X version worth its $70 price point when you could get the exact same title somewhere else for 60. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes sense. What was I about to say before you put it in this huge tirade, and I was going to lose my train of thought anyway?
It wasn't so much a tirade as I was just trying to further explain my reasoning for things, essentially.
No, I know. But I was just about to make a point about something. It kind of had to do with really just, it was about how, like you were saying, just the different things that we value between the games. And for me, I usually say it's a lot, but, a lot of it is, the time investment and how much fun it is. And I think that those are really the big things for me. I don't think, I don't put as much of a, high of a price on, graphics and performances. I know you do. So, those kind of things don't,
but the graphics
could not necessarily,
like I said, the graphics so much so aren't necessarily my biggest issue with the title. Because if it was, I wouldn't have Rise of Ronin. You know what I'm saying? My biggest issue is when something doesn't perform well. So with Rise of Ronin's graphics, right? I would still say the game is worth it because of gameplay wise, as well as quality gameplay, if it wasn't for the fact that there's also issues with performance. I don't think graphics necessarily are a reason to dock points unless the game is being sold purely based off its graphics or purely based off being a quote-unquote next-gen title. You know what I'm saying? Or modern title or whatever. So if you're like trying to sell me on something like, for instance, Last of Us Part 2 PS5 remaster, it looks exactly like the PS4 version.
Yeah.
That's not worth it. That is not worth the price, in my opinion, because you're selling it based off of a graphics upgrade, and I could not give a shit less because it looks almost exactly the same.
Yeah, or marginally better. Yeah, like it's not usually, and it's the same thing for me. Like I said, graphics really don't factor in for me with that kind of thing. So exactly the same. Like it's negligible to me, so it's not worth the price. So yeah, no, I agree with that completely. What does it say though? It's always tricky though, because because someone always inevitably pulls out the, oh, I'll give you an example. I was just like, oh, I would spend $70 for Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
But really, also, I should point out again that I did only spend $50 for Tears of the Kingdom. So I always kind of do feel like that maybe is a little disingenuous. But the other thing is
technically I did as well. So you and I actually both spent 50 because we used the pass, the voucher thing. Yeah.
But anyways, so but then you get the comparison, be like, oh, so it's like, okay, you put 100 hours into Breath of the Wild, and that's acceptable time or whatever. But you probably put 100 hours into Vampire Survivors. Should that be a $70 game?
That's true. No, I don't think it should, because even though it is a very quality game, it is definitely designed as something that it knows that it is. And I do think that some of those smaller titles that release for pretty cheap, much like what I was talking about with Buckshot Roulette or with Vampire Survivors, it being released at a small price, it actually does wonders for it, because it's easier for something that's priced cheaply to be able to be spread virally. Much easier, because more people are just going to be like, it's like $3, whatever, fuck it, I'll check it out. And then when they find an actual good game, or for instance, when Vampire Survivors came to phone and people actually find out how addicting and fun it is, they're like, well, shit, this is really good, and then that word of mouth spreads, and people buy it on PC, and people buy it on Xbox, and people buy it on Switch, and so on and so forth. And you're going to make a lot of sales that you otherwise wouldn't, because of your barrier to entry right there, and because of the fact that you are a smaller indie title and you're not charging an exuberant price for it. I think you are going to do better than if you were to price something at like a $20-$30 indie title when it looks something like Vampire Survivors. I think you'll do far better because of the smaller entry, like barrier to entry, which would make people just pick it up on a whim, essentially.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is too, when you're talking something like Vampire Survivors on like a scale of time, like that gameplay loop's a lot smaller. It's easy to spend 100 hours in that game.
Absolutely.
But really your gameplay loop is, much smaller. Like a game only takes you about 30 minutes. And maybe to experience, most of what the game has to offer in terms of variety. You
can get in like 20 hours. Okay. I was gonna say, if you're doing literally everything, you can get in like 20 hours.
Oh yeah. If you're looking to do more,
if you're just wanting to get the general gist of the game and not like dive in and get all the characters and this, that, and the other, you'll be done in like 2 or 3, essentially.
Which is what you figure they would assume most people would do. Get a couple of those unlocks. Kind of get the general game idea, get some mindless fun out of it. Especially too, the game was super popular on cell phones. People are not going to be sitting there for hours upon hours, going through.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one that's priced appropriately, because that gameplay loop's smaller. You have to kind of base it off the gameplay loop, not the total amount of time that you play.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
I spent 20 hours on Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, right? I paid $40 for it. I think that was fine. I got a game that was polished, worked really well, looked great for what it was going for. Obviously, that game looks like a Dreamcast game, but that is the literal reason the game was made, is to look like a Dreamcast game. So it's appropriately emulating like the feel of a game like that sort of thing. There's a lot of content there. I mean, I didn't even finish the whole thing. I just decided to go through the final boss, which was 20 hours essentially. There's still more characters that I could play as. I've still got so many other things I could do in the game, and that I think is the most expensive indie game I have ever bought at $40. And I do think that these in between like full titles that aren't like 5 hours long or like 4 hours long being priced at like $40, I do think that is fair. I actually do. I think some of these bigger indie titles that have more content than your usual ones, I think it's entirely fair for them to be priced at like $40 accordingly. And you know what? Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is not an indie title, but it is a $40 title, and I do think it is 100% worth its asking price because of the dynamic like changing of the game. We actually, this week, you know what we did? We deleted one of the factions from existence. We killed them so hard, we removed one of the enemies from the entire game.
Oh,
that's
cool.
Fucking cool. They just came back today in their motherships and have reinvaded and have started a full-scale invasion now, destroying everything in their path. But for a week, we had completely removed an entire enemy, like a genre of enemies from the game because we killed them so hard. So that's a really cool idea. This is a $40 game that I've gotten like 40 hours out of almost, and I haven't done anywhere near as much as other people that have got like 80, 100, 200 hours. Again, the quality is here. The changing of gameplay, the ever-expanding story and game as it is, the actual performance, all of it is here. And I think that a smaller title like this is worth its $40 price point. I don't think we should so much be asking, like, is this game worth $70 as much as we should be asking, should this game be like a AA title that's worth like 35, 40, $45 instead of like the $70 price point? So like another good example, the RoboCop game, which I think was $30. That game's excellent. I got like a lot of content out of that. It might be 40. Let me check. That one's actually 50. Believe it or not. I guess I got it on. The person that bought it for me got it on a sale. But anyway, that's a $50 game. I think there's a shit ton of content. I think it's a really good game, and I think again, its price point is perfect for what it is. It had great quality. It had great performance. It had everything. I think we need to be looking more. I think some companies should look at launching $50, $40, $30 titles and not focus so much on these big fucking open world AAA games. And I think if we had smaller titles like that released, we wouldn't be having the discussion of, is something worth 70? I think we'd be more or less looking at, wow, there are so many smaller titles that still have like big title like energy that feel like a big game that are launching and doing so well at the price point that they're launching at. And I think you do have those examples that are starting to show up, like things like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, like RoboCop, and like Helldivers 2, which is absolutely one of the biggest examples of it. Helldivers 2 is just fucking tearing it up right now. I think even Power World was a $30 game. Power World is like $27, $30. That game right there, again, another great example. And something that is actually across the board with these games is they're selling really well. They're selling to a market that exists now and that has every right to exist, and that is a huge part of the gaming market, I think. I think you're going to be able to sell these smaller titles a lot better than these AAA ones that are releasing now. I think more people should focus on things like that.
It's all about balance.
Yeah. I think more AA and indie titles would make for a better gaming industry. I think we would have probably less layoffs, and because we wouldn't have overinflated budgets of things, which hopefully wouldn't lead to as many firings because the budgets aren't massively overinflated and don't make their money back. I think things would actually turn out better overall for the industry as a whole.
I mean, I think it would be, I think they're important, and I think it would help make those prices a lot more justified. I think for people, I think it would help keep variety good. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. The big thing you always kind of wonder, and you always see kind of games market shift like this is, you don't want it to shift too far in one direction or the other, because then it ends up becoming completely underserviced. Which I feel like actually that middle range, that kind of $40, $30 price range is like horribly neglected lately. You got a lot below it, you got a lot above it, but not much there. But yeah, no, I definitely think they could do a lot more with that. There is one question though I thought of, although, and I have a thought experiment too, but it's maybe more a topic for a different time. But I'll just tell you what that is, so you can maybe think on it. And if we are looking for a topic another day, then maybe something to do. But maybe one day come up with actually criteria, like what we would expect, for each price of games. Like, hey, this is what I would expect in a $70 game. This is what I expect in a $60 game. Like, would I have to have this, and this? May or may not have this. Like those kind of things. But but the question I was going to ask, though, it's a little bit more relevant. One thing I do have difficulty with even like $60 games is there's just certain genres that I just have a difficult time, no matter how much quality is there, with those like higher price points.
Like what?
Like which genres?
Yeah, what genre is it that you think just shouldn't be in that price point?
I don't necessarily think shouldn't. I'm maybe, like I said, it's more
or
of
that you have a tough time with
a
in
tough
that price
time
point.
with it.
Yeah.
Like visual novels, those ones I think are a tough sell up there. The
yeah, I do understand that. That one makes sense.
That one's a tough one because it's missing a lot of things generally. You don't usually get the replay value there,
Well, I will disagree on some visual novels because some are made to be played repeatedly and have different,
like 999, but not all of them.
I think a large portion of visual novels being released right now, have multiple paths that make them worth it, but I don't think they're worth that much of a price, essentially. I do see a lot of visual novels launching for like $40-$50, and when they're like fully voiced and this, that, and the other, or have like animations and this, that, and the other, I'm like, okay, well, I get that. But I haven't seen really any that have launched for like 60 lately. If you could point me to one, I would.
Well, closest you got for that is thank you, Nintendo, for the Another Code recollection that just came out.
Wait, is that a visual novel?
Basically, it's
what?
It's like a Mistlight game.
That's not a visual novel. That's different. That's an adventure game.
I know.
That would be a different kind of thing. That'd be more like a point-and-click game. Which, if that was the conversation we were having, I definitely feel like they aren't worth $60.
But I also feel like that's also. But in terms of what you're doing, a lot of times, though, there's more effort having to be put into a point-and-click game in terms of gameplay development than the visual novel.
Well, yeah, but the way you just described Another Code Recollection is more like a point-and-click game. So then, now are you disagreeing with yourself? Do you just want to say that Another Code Recollection is not worth $60?
No, that's what I was saying. I was using it as an example for your visual novel at $60. But I agree, it's not as text-heavy as a visual novel would be. That has a lot more gameplay elements interspersed.
I think, and these don't get made that often anymore, but RTS games don't feel like they are worth $60. So
actually, I would even take that a step further, but this is definitely me centric.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would say most multiplayer only games are not, but I know that's very much me.
I don't necessarily disagree, because when you have things like CS2, for instance, Team Fortress 2, Fortnite, and the like releasing for free, it's really hard to point to the newest multiplayer game unless it's doing something interesting and different, such as Helldivers 2, and be like, that's worth its price point. Helldivers 2 is only $40 though. So again, that comes back to what I was saying. If you get the right price point, you'll do better.
And that makes more sense with something like that. But could you imagine something like the next Call of Duty? Well, I mean, yeah, it's going to be $70.
Yeah, dude, I got Modern Warfare 3. Remember I told you that? That game's never been worth $70.
Nope. But it's kind of, and the other thing too, kind of pull back to something we kind of mentioned.
And they don't even put in the effort. That's the biggest issue. Like, they launch a game, and then they will put out like little updates here and there, and then they just completely fucking abandon it as they work on the next one. And it's fucking obnoxious. Sports games. No sports game is worth $70.
Oh yeah, same. Yep. That's pretty much it with those.
I literally wait until the past year's sports game is down to like $5-10, and then I buy that and play it instead. That's literally what I do, like all the time.
Yeah, and to bring it back around too, kind of what I think this was during the episode that we mentioned it, not before. But that lawsuit or whatever, where the person was complaining about online games. It's kind of the same thing. Like once that service is over, that thing is worth nothing.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter which period of time you had; it just becomes zero. You could have had it for 2 weeks. You could have had it for 7 years.
And many of these games that are releasing for $70 now are becoming like just obsolete in a matter of weeks, not even months anymore. Like I would point to Suicide Squad versus the Justice League, for instance. That game 2 weeks later was $45, and then a week later was $30. This game has plummeted in price, and it wasn't worth its value at the start, and it's not even worth the value that they're trying to charge for it now.
Yeah.
And the biggest issue is they're not doing anything to give it value. Like, again, I'm going to go back to Suicide Squad versus Justice League. They released the Joker, the new version of the Joker that they made for that game. And the way you unlock him is by replaying the single-player missions that you've already played after they reset your level back to 0, so you had to start over from the beginning. That's just busy work. That's not gameplay. That's not increasing or making the game better. That's just making the player jump through more hoops to get a thing that's new. It's stupid.
Yep. Yes, it is. Anyways. Anything else on this topic you want to talk about?
No. I will say, right, that I was talking with Katie about it, right? And I guess I'll put this in here. Katie's like saying that, like, essentially, if I understand correctly, that they should be spending more time looking to indies so that indies can like shine, basically, and these like games that are like free and this, that, and the other place. More people should be looking towards them because then that person can have a chance to make their game better, which would then allow them to eventually actually release a game and make money off it that way. And a lot of indie titles are like hidden out there. Like we spoke about Voices of the Void last week. Like that game is very niche, very different, very hidden. I would have never even known about it if it wasn't for like a singular YouTube video. And that game has so much potential, but like no one knows about it. And that's also part of the reason why I always talk about indie titles, because there's so much shit out there past these big budget bullshit AAA games that are so much more entertaining and so much more fun. And I quite literally make it my mission to point these out, because these people do deserve that recognition and do deserve that chance to shine a lot more than some of these people that are trying to release games at $70 do.
Yeah. So
and what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say there's been some incredibly creative games in the indie space. We were talking about Inscription. Inscription's super creative. So it's very different than anything else, and yeah. And then you don't get that. And a lot of these indie games are so creative that they birth like
copycats of their thing, and I'm always able to point out when the copycat is coming. I'm like, all right, Slay the Spire, and they're gonna have like 800 copycats of that game within the next year, and bam, it happens. I mentioned before, Boltero, or what I was talking about, the card game I told you about that was really fucking good. There's already copycats of that game coming out. Like literally, I saw one that was with a roulette machine, and I was like, okay, this looks like a lot of fun, but this is literally just a copycat. And yeah, I mean, just play more games outside of the normal bullshit. That's the long thing. That's the thing that needs to be said at the end of the day. Step outside of your comfort zone, because you don't have to just be stuck with these $70 AAA bullshit games that you can run through and then be done with. So yeah.
Exactly. All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, I think I'm good there.
Okay. Well then. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us tonight. Don't forget to find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on the web at game-crunch.com. All of our old episodes are there. Or you can send us an email at gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. Brandon.
Hello.
Any final thoughts?
No, I got none.
Okay. Then, that's it. My name is Mike Anastasia. You can find me online from Clash of Penguins there or on your favorite gaming console. And until next week, game on.
Game on. That was good.
Yeah.
I think that worked out. I think that was a good topic.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think there's even more that we could unpack there.
Yeah. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Mostly about your general bias towards Tears of the Kingdom.
It's not bias, like I told you. It's mental gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. I don't know. It is definitely. I don't know. At least that's how I justify it in my mind. Like I said, discernibly. Well, but you know what? I really honestly do think though, mentally, I'm probably not weighting it properly because I did only spend $50 for it.
Yeah.
Too.
We both did. Did.
And I think part of me is I know that they have different prices on paper, but
the thing is I pointed out, you could think of something okay, so let's look at a game that I don't think is worth $70. I guess if you're still recording, you can put this in if you want, right? Back to the Tears of the Kingdom conversation real quick. I don't think God of War Ragnarok is worth $70 in my opinion. However, I do think it's worth $70 more so than Tears of the Kingdom is. That's my opinion on that though. But yeah, my main reasoning again for it not being worth $70 is I could pay $60 for it on PS4.
Fair. But I guess the what's the word I'm looking for? Devil's advocate question. I think to this topic would be: at what point do you think that this conversation becomes irrelevant?
I think when Switch potentially releases their new console. I think if you can look at that and see a substantial jump in the performance and quality of titles being released, I think then it's allowed to be in the conversation of $70 games. I don't think that Switch should even be in the conversation talking point of $70 games currly because their hardware is so outdated.
We're talking about two different things.
Opinion. So, when you're saying when do I think it becomes relevant? What do you mean then?
Yeah, no, exactly. When do you think that at what point in time will having the conversation of is this game worth $70 become relevant?
I think when we're not having as many titles get out that are also cross-gen and also just literally poorer quality of the past titles, because I do think that's going to come. I think there's going to be outliers where you always look at something like fucking something by Ubisoft and you're like, that's not worth its price. I think that outlier is always going to remain there, and I do think it's also going to remain with things like EA and that sort of thing. But I do think that probably when we get these pro consoles, that and the Switch gets its upgrade to whatever the next Switch thing is, that $70 just being the normal point for it will be an easier pill to swallow. Not necessarily irrelevant all of the time, but I do think most of the time it will be, because you'll already have the performance as well as the quality there. Because I do think that we are having so many growing pains with the PS5 and the Series X due to the pandemic that I don't think that they should have released any games on these initial systems at $70. And they should have waited to put that bump up when they released the pro versions of these consoles, because it would be a more substantial leap, and they would be able to make better hardware due to the fact that they're not strapped for being able to even get a hold of the chips like they were during the pandemic, or being able to even build the actual systems that they want to, like they were initially trying to but could not do due to all the shortages of everything that was going on. I think when we see the pro consoles, we'll see the true potential of both the PS5 and the Series X, and that's when things will be like, okay, $60 titles are a thing of the past. That's very obvious now, and that this is where we are now. And I think that is when it will be irrelevant to talk about $60 and $70 games, because we'll be dropping those cross titles as well, more so than not. So that's my main thoughts on the whole thing.
You hope they drop them.
I hope they do. I do hope they do. But the PS5, as well as, well, not the Xbox One, but the PS5 is, I mean, the PS4 was one of the most adopted consoles. So you have to believe there's still a lot of people with that out there. But the PS5 entry point now with these slims is like $300. You know, it's barely more with tax than a Switch. So it's like, you know, it's not that bad. It's not really that big of an entry point. And if that was the original price point of the PS5, which obviously it was going to be, it was not going to be, but if that was the original price point of it, and then like when we get that Pro, it's like $400-$500, you know, maybe $600 at most, and there's a substantial leap in quality there, then you look at it and you're like, well, these games are releasing and they play this well, they run this well. At least I think on first party titles, that is going to be something that we're going to see carry over when we get those pro consoles, because I don't think these games were designed with the system that we have currently in mind. I think a lot of them were designed with another system that Sony was not able to make and Microsoft was not able to make because of the shortages.